Okay, good evening. My name is Daniel Korny. I'm Chief Product Officer at DeepPavlov, and it's our sixth community call. It's been now half a year since we started this small tradition. And so finally enough, it's a short week in Russia. We had a couple of days of holidays, like Monday and Tuesday, so lots of people moved out and decided to spend their this short week somewhere else in mountains and forests and so on. So it will be very, very small number of people coming from our lab this day. Anyways, it's our community call number 6, and we have several things in store that we want to talk today. And this talk is recorded, so most chances are that you will be able to watch this community call on our YouTube. And with it, let's start. So what we're going to talk today, we're going to talk today about a couple of things. First is what's happening with our road to version 1.0 of DeepPavlov library. And secondly, we'll talk about our next intermediate release, version 0.15. Okay, so let's move ahead and take a look at what's happening with our version 1.0 planning. Just to remind you, currently our library looks like this. This is how it looks like right now in version 0.14. We have a number of skill builders, components for working with knowledge graphs. We have components that allow you to work with natural language understanding. We also have a set of skill adapters. We have channel support. We have support for hanging face transformers and spaCy. And we finally have speech services coming from NVIDIA nmu library. And obviously, at last but not least, you can work with our NLP components and other things through REST API and Socket API in addition to Python. And in the last couple of releases, we started a huge transition from TensorFlow 1.x that our library was built upon in the beginning to PyTorch. And in our plans, we want to move forward with refactoring of our library. We want to remove some of the obsolete skill builders like e-commerce, chatbot, and other things. We want to add more components coming from DeepPavlov's dream, which was a productization of our original social bot built for Amazon Enterprise. And we also want to make a big transition of all of our key components from TensorFlow 1.x to PyTorch. There are other things that we still haven't made a firm decision yet, but we probably will move out skill builders and other things into a separate thing called skill builders. So they won't be called models, but will be called skill builders in the system itself. And all individual components, like all individual skills, they will be part of our DeepPavlov DP, which is available in GitHub repository, which is our open source multi-skill AI system. Okay, so you can track everything that we're working on for building version 1.0 at our public board at GitHub. And today I would like to talk about a couple of things that we're working on. We're working on many things, and a couple of them are configurations and better usability. So speaking of configurations, one of the things that we wanted to improve, this is first of all for us, but it's also a huge improvement for you as well, is making our configuration files more readable and easier to use. So while one of the transitions that we want to do, one of the changes we want to do is to make those components available in more human readable format, and we are researching YAML as one of the possible ways to write pipeline configuration files for the DeepPavlov components. The other thing is we want to create a central repository or catalog, if you like, of requirements for our built-in components. Let me dive into this. So currently in our library, we have 250 configurations. Each configuration represents a model. So it can be intent classifiers, slot fillers, named entity extraction, entity linking, and many other things. About 250 configs, that's a lot of things. And while we're gonna cut some of those things, deprecate in other words, it's still tricky to control all of them. And each configuration file lists its requirements, and this requirement file, this requirement section, is actually a link to a requirements file which is located in the DeepPavlov/requirements folder of our repository. And what we want to do is to remove this requirement section from the built-in configuration files, and we want to bring one catalog that would keep record of requirements for all built-in config files. So that would allow you to more easily grasp through the config files and understand what's happening inside them. And for us, it would also help to track requirements in one central location. So how's it going to look like? We will have one file called requirements.json probably. This is what we are still deciding upon, but this is going to be probably our decision here. And this file will contain a list of configuration files for each, requirement files for each configuration that we have in our model, now in our DeepPavlov library. With that, this is a very important step for us. And we still have more plans in store for further simplification of config files. But that's the first thing that we are going to build, and that's the first thing that we want to show you today. And the second big thing that we're working on in our road to version 1.0 is use of customer journey maps. So customer journey maps is a modern technique that is used by different product managers across the world. The idea is very simple. We start with the needs of our customers, which in this case are you developers. We then look at stages that you should go through to fulfill your need. Then for each stage, we identify key problems that you may face during your path. And finally, we suggest different kinds of solutions that could help us to make your path through this map easier. As an example here, you can see the journey map for finding an open source conversational platform. And just to clarify, we don't start with our website, we start with Google as example. So you can go to Google and say something like open source conversational platform. And we look and we see that we are on the first page of search results. We look for that in incognito mode. But it looks like we are like 10 results or 16 results, something like that. So we obviously could improve the thing by working on our search engine optimization. Then you would land on our DeepPavlov.ai website, but then you would have no clear way to begin building your multi-SQL assistant. So we will add a link leading to DP. And that's one of the things that we want to do in the coming days, hopefully. And then we will add more other things. So for example, we will highlight that DP is actually a multi-SQL assistant or demo.deepavlov.ai. We will provide a more visible link for GitHub. on GitHub, there is instruction how to run a very simple demo, but there is no instruction how to run more complex demos, and we will provide those links as well. We also provide you a simple developer UI that you can use to debug your multi-skill AI assistant and so on. So this is just an example of customer journey maps. We have 3 in progress. So we have 6 more to go, and we have even more in planning. Each of them is focused on key problems, and this is a method that we will continue using to make version 1.0 an even better and more simple experience for conversational AI developers that want to go with us on our path to true conversational AI. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen in the intermediate release. It's going to be called version 0.15. And why is it so? So version 1.0 will realistically come around the summer. And we don't want to let you stay where we are on version 0.14. So we want to incrementally ship new things as we continue building them and ship to you in those incremental stages to version 1.0. And there will be several things that we want to be focused on. First of them is migration to PyTorch, and in the upcoming version, we will provide you with near migrated to PyTorch. And second thing that we want to continue building out incrementally from version to version is integration of our Gbot and intent catcher to make it easier for you to jumpstart your goal-oriented skills. So just to make a small recap, what happened to Gbot in the previous version? In the previous version, version 0.14, we added support from basic form filling. We continued supporting version 1.2 of RASA format because RASA format is quite useful, usable, and easily readable. So we supported basic form filling on PayRSM, and we provided you with a form filling tutorial that you can use to use form filling in your goal-oriented skills. Now, what we want to ship in version 0.15 is we want to do several things. First, Gbot will migrate to version 2.0 of RASA format. Storage MD will transition to storage.yml. nlu.md will transition to nlu.yml. And it will get support for our intent catcher intents, in addition to basic intents that we supported in the previous releases. We'll also provide you with a new tutorial for Gbot and intent catcher together. And as well as before, you will be able to integrate it to a deep distribution called DeepPavlov base. So why do we want to do that? So as we said before, RASA's approach to configuration files is quite good. Writing lots of examples for intents, however, is rather painful. That's what we've heard from our customers who use Gbot and their solutions. And we want to minimize time that you need to define intents in the beginning of your goal-oriented skill built on top of Gbot. And for that, we want to use intent catcher that has been also released in the previous version of the DeepPavlov library, 0.14. So here's an example of how it's going to look like. In version 2.0, domain email will still have a list of intents. And as you can see here, it doesn't matter how you define your intents, no matter if they are intent catcher based or classic vanilla intent, they will be defined very much the same way. So we added those comment lines like vanilla and default intent catcher intents, but here they don't make any difference. Now, if you look at nlu.yml, you will see that intents that are supported by that intents that are supported by RASA. They are very simple. So you can provide intent name. You can provide a couple of examples. Craig Hi. And you can also provide regular expressions for intents. Here, however, these regular expressions, they are not exactly intents. In case of RASA, they are just features that are used for identification of intents from the user utterance. What we do add to the system is this. So we specify a version 2.0 here. And we allow you to specify something called regex examples. Notice that they are not regex, but regex examples. Here, you can use the same format that you can use with intent catcher in a standalone version. This notation will be expanded into different examples generated from one line. So you can add several lines of this, and you can have easily like tens or maybe even hundreds of examples coming from a few lines written using regular expressions format. And what's interesting is you can not only use regular regex examples here, you can also use this similar format for examples themselves. So these two versions, these two approaches will make it easier for you guys to use GoBot in building your goal-oriented skills. And this is something that is going to be shipped in version 0.15. And we are very anxious to hear what you guys think about that. So that's about it for today. If you have any questions, you're welcome to ask those questions. I will be happy to answer you. We have a couple of developers on board from our team. As I said before, like for Russia, it's a short week, and many people decided to use this chance and went to vacation. So we have just a few folks from the library team today, but we're happy to answer your questions. But if you don't have any questions, just to remind you, next week on Friday, we will have our 3-year celebration. It will be in Russian only. And there we will talk about different use cases of DeepPavlov in the wild. We will have a funny talk about how you can use DeepPavlov to improve your personal life. And we will show you how DeepPavlov is used across Russia and Europe. And we will also talk about our version 1.0 plans, like those we mentioned in this and previous community calls. So I think that's about it. Again, wish you all have a great short week and enjoy holidays, enjoy your weekend, and see you next time on Friday. And just to remind you, starting with next month, starting with March, we will hold 2 versions of Community Call, one in Russian and one in English. So all audiences that use DeepPavlov will be able to talk to us in their preferred language. Thanks to all.